Hey everyone, welcome to Youth Bombs. I'm Craig.
I'm Carson.
And we're the voice of young conservatives in Alachua County. Speaker Johnson very narrowly was reelected as Speaker of the House. The Republicans have a narrow majority in the House, a 5-seat majority, which is endangered due to President-elect Trump picking certain individuals to serve in his cabinet. Carson, are you surprised that Johnson passed on the first go?
Yeah, so I was a little ignorant of the entire process, but essentially I was under the impression that Johnson would basically be operating under a 2-seat majority because Trump, he picked 2 people in the current Congress, and then Gaetz also resigned. So that would leave him with a 2-seat majority because they're down 3. But actually, they ended up getting it by a 3-vote margin because Stefanik and Waltz, who are supposed to be in the next Trump administration, are still in Congress. So they will leave, and then the majority will be down to 2. One of those votes is Massey, so it was 218 to 215, minus Gaetz because he's not in Congress, and then minus Massey, who voted for, I believe, Emmer. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was a little surprising. It's like, now that I know that, it's not as surprising, but there were definitely a few, other than Massey, who were saying, I don't want to vote for Johnson. I think they were just looking for their 5 seconds of fame. But yeah, not for Massey, for Johnson. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am surprised that Massey voted for Emmer. I can definitely see, him not voting for Johnson. That makes sense given his statements and beliefs. But Tom Emmer is not known as like a libertarian/conservative firebrand. He's fairly establishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure why he picked him either. I don't really know that much about all of them. I would have assumed, he would have knowing his pick is not going to go through, maybe Ron Paul or something, just for the fun of it. But yeah, either way, I think it's just this is kind of going to be, first off, props on them for getting it right the first time. The past few, I think they had it in late 2022, and they also had it when McCarthy was first trying to become speaker. But the past few times they've been trying to get speakers, it's just been, absurd, frankly. I think they went on, at one point, 12 different attempts at speaker on the, not when McCarthy was first getting in, but
when they were
ousted. They were ousting him. But I think this is kind of problematic because the first 100 days of Trump's presidency, I believe, lead into May, if not just ending at late April. And Matt Gaetz' replacement, he'll be the first one who'll be at least elected. And I believe he's probably not going to be in Congress until mid-April. So the first 100 days of Trump's presidency are probably going to be marked by a very chaotic run where you're going to have to basically get every single Republican on board for every single piece of legislation. I mean, you can have Massey dissent, and after that, you will have a one vote over on the Democrats. So if they want to pass anything, I'm really going to assume the Democrats aren't going to work with them very much this term, especially because Trump is president. They have no imperative to try to pass anything. They want to make him look bad. And so, the first 100 days could be marked by a lot of chaos. I imagine a lot of people are going to start to develop their opinions on this presidency within those first 100 days. So that could be bad just for the Republican brand. Obviously, Trump won't be seeking re-election. He's in his second term. But if we're talking about, a J.D. Vance presidency, and we're starting off with a marked period of chaos in the first 100 days of office, I'm not sure that that's going to be necessarily a good thing for Republicans.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, except I think that Trump, knowing how narrow the majority is, he may decide to focus on executive actions within the first 100 days and say, I'm going to wait for a bigger majority in Congress. I'm going to wait till I have the 5 seats instead of 2 seats to make legislative changes, and I'm going to do what I can executively to make the changes I'd like to see in the country.
Mm-hmm. And then, I'm not necessarily in disagreement with you, we still need to fund the government at some point, right? You need the CR, which I believe the one in December is going to fund us through March. So you're still going to need to pass. There's certain things you need to do legislatively. And furthermore, a 5-seat majority is not much better. Obviously,
right.
a 2-seat majority is kind of absurd. A 5-seat majority is still pretty bad. And, the Republicans, I think this is just kind of a part of the problem with congressional Republicans. The Democrats, you can argue about them, culturally as a cultural force. They might have some disagreements. There's a lot of debate between, liberals and the left. But Democrats as a party they keep it together. They, when they were voting for Jeffries, every single Democrat, that includes AOC, that includes Cori Bush, that includes Jamal Bowman, all of these, super far left Democrats, every single one was in line to vote for their guy. And I think it's kind of a problem that congressional Republicans, even if it's just Massey, I still think, if we've looked at the past, we looked at when they had Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan, and before that, Kevin McCarthy, just the fact that it was so hard to find a leader, it kind of shows congressional Republicans being in disarray. And I think we might have seen that reflected in, electorally. There were so many very, very close House races. And so, it's very possible that because Trump outran a lot of these people, it may be possible that's part of the reason is that I trust Trump. I do not trust, my House rep or my Republican House rep. I'm going to vote Trump and Democrat. Or I trust Trump. I do not trust Mike Rogers in the Senate or that kind of thing. And so it's like, it's not a direct attack on these people. It just might go to show that the Republican brand may be in danger outside of Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that is shown in a number of cases, like you mentioned with Mike Rogers or Wisconsin and Arizona and similar states, Nevada, for example. So there are voters who just trust Trump but don't trust the Republican brand. The fact that, though, Trump was able to pull almost everyone in line to vote for Johnson, whereas a year or two ago, he endorsed McCarthy as Speaker, but there were many defections. I think that shows now his greater influence on the party, given his re-election.
Yeah, I agree. And it's definitely a better sign, for Republicans. It's seeming like they're going to be in much less disarray, mainly because when we were looking at this was the year 2022. Everybody was talking about DeSantis running for president. A bunch of people wanted. It definitely seemed like there was going to be like a greater split. I think at the time DeSantis was polling at something like 40 to 45% in a direct primary against Trump. So it definitely seemed like there was a much bigger split between Trump Republicans and DeSantis Republicans. Where today it's very clear Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. Nobody is challenging him for that right now. And even, whoever succeeds him will likely be someone who is succeeding him at his own behest. So I definitely think that Trump has a greater influence. It's very clear. People are falling in line for good or bad reasons. They're falling in line. They're recognizing I don't really have much of a choice but to follow what this guy says. And so, I think it will be less of a problem than it was in the last Congress. I still think it is important that, for House Republicans, if they want to get much done, and this isn't really me saying this as like someone who loves Republicans all that much. I tend to align a little bit more with conservatives and liberals, but I'm definitely not a Republican or a Democrat, obviously. But I just think from an outsider's perspective, I think that voters see this. I think voters see when there's a period of disarray, when there's, people who they elected who are not getting behind a certain piece of legislation. And I think that it's not necessarily good for the brand. And I wonder if that might have had an impact in the 2024 election.
Understandable. And also just looking at the fact that, say, many of these House reps who didn't vote for McCarthy 2 years ago, they had very strong objections to him, and Trump endorsed him. Now, same case, Trump endorsed and they followed to vote for Johnson. I think legislatively, that shows that, yes, it's going to be a tough pull for Trump to get legislation accomplished, but perhaps more possible than one may think.
Yeah, definitely. And we can obviously look, there's the 38 Republicans who continue to vote against the CR earlier, I think, early December. And so there's definitely going to be struggles. I'm hoping that generally these struggles will mean that mostly bare bones things will get passed. We're just going to fund the government and that's all. We're not going to go for all of these different aid packages or sending our money to Ukraine or Israel or that kind of thing. Hopefully this means, the government will do less, not more. But yeah, obviously it's very important that you appear unified as a party. I think this was a good move. I'm definitely good for the Republicans that they were able to unify behind a candidate. Obviously, aside from the one dissenter, Massey, they have their guy. I'm curious where this will go. Especially these first 100 days, it's looking like it might be a little crazy. But hey, if they're able to have every vote be just as cohesive and as all on the same page as this, then certainly, I think they might very, very quickly lose that reputation for being, disconnected.
Much to be seen for sure. That being said, thanks everyone so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We upload 3 times a week. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out at youthbombs@alatrorepublicans.com. Thanks so much, everyone.